I'm glad to make this recording for our Bhikkhuni ordination. On this special occasion, I like to bring out very important part of our practice. Mahaparinibbana Sutta records that Mara requesting the Buddha 4 times to pass away. Mara says, according to the sutta, "May the glorious one attain final emancipation now. Reverend Sir, may the fortunate one attain final emancipation. Now is the time. Revered Sir, for the gracious one's final emancipation." For these words, Reverend Sir, were spoken by the glorious one. "I will not attain final emancipation, wicked one, for as long as my monks are not true disciples, accomplished, disciplined, confident, learned, bearers of the teachings, practicing in conformity with the teaching, correct in their practice, living in conformity with the teaching, and having learned it from their own teacher, will declare, reveal, make known, set forth, open up, analyze, make plain, after giving a good rebuke with the reason to the doctrines of others that have arisen and reached the miraculous teachings. But at present, Reverend Sir, the glorious ones makes monks are true disciples, accomplished, disciplined, confident, learned, bearers of the teachings, practicing in conformity with the teaching, correct in their practice, living in conformity with the teaching, the having learned it from their own teacher, do declare, reveal, make known, set forth, open up, analyze, make plain, after giving a good rebuke with reason to the doctrines of others that have arisen, and teach the miraculous teaching. So with this, Mara invited the Buddha to pass away. And when Buddha said that he would not pass away until his bhikkhus are accomplished, when the second time Mara invited the Buddha to pass away, Buddha said that he would not pass away for as long as his nuns or bhikkhunis are not accomplished just like bhikkhus. When the third time Mara invited the Buddha to pass away, Buddha said that he would not pass away for as long as his laymen are not accomplished just as bhikkhus. When the fourth time Mara invited the Buddha to pass away, Buddha said that he would not pass away for as long as his lay women are not accomplished just like bhikkhus. Here we can see that the Buddha refused to accept Mara's request to pass away until all the four segments Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka and Upasika were well established. The Buddha seems to have waited for right moment to ordain women as bhikkhunis. Today, bhikkhunis demand recognition without harassment and intimidation in order to continue the tradition the Buddha started 2600 years ago. They are not asking anything new. Unfortunately, however, modern women's struggle for recognition as bhikkhunis seems to be even harder than Mahaprajapati's receiving ordination from the Buddha. Objections to their ordination are and rejections their acceptance by some individuals and some countries are not based on any legitimate reason, but fear that they take over the authority of corrupt bhikkhus. In spite of all the odds against them, their number is increasing every year. We should recollect the problems arose after ordaining women as bhikkhunis. Had the Buddha ordained women just on the eve of his parinibbana, like Subhadra, the bhikkhu would have said that they did not have time to ask the Buddha any question or demonstrate their objection against women's ordination. If they had any objection to women's ordination, they should have confronted the Buddha and got their doubt clarified while the Buddha was alive. We have not come across any incident of demonstration against women's ordination, even by lay people or monks, while the Buddha was alive. Why the bhikkhus did not protest against bhikkhuni ordination while the Buddha was alive? Why did Venerable Mahakassapa wait till the Buddha passed away to reprimand Venerable Ananda for persuading the Buddha to ordain women? Why did he and other monks keep quiet till the Buddha passed away to reprimand Venerable Ananda? Any answer we might get for these questions would be speculative, because those monks are not here now to say anything, to give us correct answer. Therefore, let us not waste our time asking too many questions that we can get correct answers. We should rejoice the success of women, though very few, in moving forward, fighting all the odds against their ordination, even in this 21st century. I wish the few bhikkhunis who have gone through multiple difficulties in receiving ordination build collective force to recruit more and more women candidates to become Bhikkhunis. So Buddha asks all of us to be our own island. Bhikkhus, Buddha said, dwell with yourself as an island, with yourself as a refuge, with no other refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with the Dhamma as a refuge, with no other refuge. When you dwell with yourself as an island, with yourself as a refuge, with no other refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with the Dhamma as a refuge, with no other refuge, the basis itself should be investigated thus. From what are sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair born? How are they produced? But bhikkhus, when one has understood the impermanence of form, its change, fading away, and cessation, and when one sees as it really is, with correct wisdom, thus in the past and also now, all form is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. Then sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair are abandoned. With their abandonment, one does not become agitated. Being unagitated, one dwells happily. A bhikkhu who dwells happily is said to be quenched in that respect. When one has understood the impermanence of feeling, of perception, of volitional formations, of consciousness, is changing, fading away, and cessation, and when one sees as it really is, with the correct wisdom thus in the past and also now, all consciousness is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. Then sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair are abandoned. With the abandonment, one does not become agitated. Being unagitated, one dwells happily. A bhikkhu who dwells happily is said to be quenched in that respect. Once, when the Buddha was sick, Venerable Ananda was so sad that he said, when the Blessed One was ill, my body seemed as it were drugged. I had become disoriented. The teachings were not clear to me. Nevertheless, I had this much consolation that the Blessed One would not attain final Nibbana without having made some pronouncements concerning the Bhikkhu Sangha. Then the Buddha said, what does the Bhikkhu Sangha now expect from me, Ananda? I have taught the Dhamma, Ananda, without making a distinction between inside and outside. The Tathagata has no closed fist of a teacher in regard to the teachings. If, Ananda, anyone thinks I will take charge of the Bhikkhu Sangha or the Bhikkhu Sangha is under my direction, it is he who should make some pronouncement concerning the Bhikkhu Sangha. But Ananda, it does not occur to the Tathagata, I will take charge of the Bhikkhu Sangha, or Bhikkhu Sangha is under my direction. So, why should the Tathagata make some pronouncement concerning the Bhikkhu Sangha? Now I am old, Ananda, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, come to the last stage. My age is now turning 80. Just as an old cart keeps going by a combination of straps, so it seems that the body of the Tathagata keeps going by a combination of straps. Whenever Ananda, by non-attention to all signs and by the cessation of certain feelings, the Tathagata enters and dwells in the signless concentration of mind. On that occasion, Ananda, the body of the Tathagata is more comfortable. Therefore, Ananda, dwells with yourself as your own island, with yourself as your own refuge, with no other refuge, dwells with Dhamma as your own island, with the Dhamma as your refuge, with no other refuge. And how Ananda does a bhikkhu dwells with himself as his own island, with himself as his own refuge, with no other refuge, with Dhamma as his island, with the Dhamma as his refuge, with no other refuge. Here Ananda, a bhikkhu, dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. These are the words that the Buddha uttered in Mahaparinibbana Sutta just before he passed away. Buddha repeated this statement after Venerable Sariputta passed away, and Venerable Ananda expressed his sorrow, saying, "But for me, the Venerable Sariputta was an advisor and counselor, one who instructed, exhorted, inspired, and gladdened me. He was unwearying in teaching the Dhamma. He was helpful to his brothers in the holy life. We recollect the nourishment of the Dhamma, the wealth of Dhamma, the help of Dhamma given by the Venerable Sariputta." Again, observing a group of silent bhikkhus, the Buddha expressed how empty-looking the community of Sangha without Sariputta and Moggallana. Then he repeated this statement. Then he said, "Those bhikkhus, either now or after I am gone, who dwells with themselves as their own island, with themselves as their own refuge, with no other refuge, with Dhamma as their island, with no other refuge, with no other refuge, with the Dhamma as their refuge. It is these bhikkhus who will be for me topmost of those keen on the training. Through effort, vigilance, restraint, and self-control, the wise person can become an island no flood will overwhelm. uttanena appamadena sanyamena damena cha deepam kairata medhavi yang ogo nabhikirati in Dhammapada. The island that will not be flooded is called Nibbana. That prevents us from drowning in the four floods: flood of greed, kama, or influx of greed, kama asava, flood of repeated becoming, bhavoga, or influx of becoming, bhavasava, flood of wrong views, dittoga, or influx of wrong views, ditthasava, flood of ignorance, avijjasava, or avijjoga. Here, in this passage, the person that follows the path leading to Nibbana should be endowed with effort, vigilance, restraint, and self-control. Bhikkhunis should be admired for possessing these qualities. They have very high degree of patience and restraint to endure great amount of hardship and discrimination. This advice is so important that even in his last moment, just before his final passing away, Buddha repeated. This advice is so powerful that it overrides all other advices. There must be a very special reason and power in this advice to override all other advices. Does this mean that we should not take refuge in the triple gems? Does this mean that we should totally be selfish? No, not because this advice nullifies all other advices, but because this advice includes all other advices. So then, how can all other advices fit into this? Some places the simile of island and refuge refers to the four foundations of mindfulness, which is the heart of Buddhism. Four foundations of mindfulness are the island and refuge. Coming back to the four foundations of mindfulness, taking refuge in them is like taking refuge in an island. Also, when we take refuge in the four foundations of mindfulness, we take refuge in the Dhamma. When we take refuge in the Dhamma, we also take refuge in the Buddha who taught the Dhamma. When we take refuge in the Buddha and Dhamma, we also take refuge in the Sangha who, following the Buddha and the Dhamma, attain stream entry state, once eternal state, never eternal state, and arahantship. This is how all are inclusive in this statement. The Buddha put the Dhamma above himself by respecting Dhamma. He asked us to follow his example and in his teaching of last days. Individuals, even the Buddhas and Arahants, come and go. Dhamma does not come and go. It remains eternally. Whether the Buddhas come into existence or not, this eternal Dhamma exists. Suffering, its cause, its end, the path leading to its end exists. Law of cause and effect exists. Impermanence, greed, hatred, and ignorance, and whole mass of mental impurities exist. Also non-greed, non-hatred and non-delusion exist. The Buddha showed us the method of liberating ourselves. We just follow it, irrespective of our gender. We can attain liberation. When the number of bhikkhunis increases, then the politicians cannot but recognize the bhikkhuni sangha. In addition to our Patimokkha rules, there are many discourses the Buddha delivered for our own benefit and make our monastic life more successful. One such discourse I would like to mention here is Ten Dhamma, Dasa Dhamma Sutta. We are supposed to learn it by heart and repeat it always. When we repeat it to ourselves, we always remember to be mindful of each of them and put them into practice. These 10 Dhammas are to be repeated not only by newly ordained novice monks and nuns, but also every bhikkhu and bhikkhuni for the rest of their life. Number one of them is, I am now changed into different modes of life from that of a lay person, should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. Becoming bhikkhuni is not just promoting one state to the higher, another state, but it's undertaking greater responsibility. We all must remember that we are no longer a layperson. Bhikkhunis must remember, bhikkhus must remember, and bhikkhunis must remember we are no longer newly ordained novices. We are spiritually matured and we have undertaken greater responsibility. One who has responsibility is always mindful, patient, and careful. The second is, my life depends on others, should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. We are no longer economically totally independent. We have to depend on people for our robes, food, lodging, and medicine. And therefore, one who depends on others must always be mindful not to do wrong things, also to make oneself an example, to live an exemplary life for lay people to follow, for people who support us have great expectation of monks and nuns. Even though they do not expect anything material, they expect the monks and nuns to live very ethical, moral, monastic life. And they expect us to practice meditation, patience, mindfulness, and always ready to give instructions to lay people in those areas. Number 3, I must now behave in a different manner, should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. Surely we have gone 3 stages higher, from lay person First stage is becoming the preparation of anagarika, preparing to become a novice, then became novice, and then became a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. So our manner, our behavior must also get promoted from gross level to refined level and further refiner level. From arrogance to humble person. Number 4, does my mind upbraid me regarding the state of my virtue? Should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. So with regard to our own virtues, we always reflect every single day, every evening. We must reflect and ask ourselves, have I done something wrong, unethical, immoral? If so, I immediately confess it and determine not to repeat the same mistake, so that keep repeating our virtuous practice. And this is why we observe Uposatha days, to remind ourselves. Samaneras renewed their precept on Uposatha day. Bhikkhus and bhikkhunis must remind themselves of their own monastic rules and regulations, Patimokka rules and so forth, and remember, as Buddha said, to be careful even of tiniest, minutest offenses that we inadvertently might commit. Number 5, do my discerning fellow bhikkhus, having tested me, upbraid me regarding the state of my virtue, should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. Our fellow bhikkhus or bhikkhunis keep an eye on our behavior. When we do something unmonkish, not fitting into monastic life, then our fellow bhikkhus or bhikkhunis remind us. When they remind us, when they advise us, we must take the advice with a very friendly, compassionate, loving attitude. Instead of protesting, instead of getting upset, getting angry for giving advice, we rather thank them. Nidhinang vapavattara yam passe vajjadasinang. Buddha said, one who shows our mistakes should be treated as one who showed us a wealth, hidden wealth. With this attitude, we must accept the advices they give. All that is mine, dear and delightful, will change and vanish, should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. Definitely, our friends, dear ones, delightful ones, will either die or separate by going away, and we may lose them sooner or later. Or we lose them, we lose ourselves by our death or departure from them. So either way, we lose them. And that is the nature of impermanence, and that we must remember always. Then, number 7, I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, whether good or evil, of that I shall be the heir, should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. This is also a very important thing to remember. Whatever unwholesome thing thought arises in our mind, we must immediately remember that this is going to create a bad karma. This unwholesome thought is not helping me to develop my spiritual practice. So we must let it go. And we must remember this advice. Karma is our owner, karma is our property, karma is our wealth. And no one can take it away from us. No one can give it to us. We are born with our karma, and we are committing our karma in this very life. And in this very life, we bear the fruit of some karmas that we commit here. And therefore, we have to be very careful and mindful. Number 8, how do I spend my night and days should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. We must always remember that not to spend the day and night by gossiping, by spending all the time on computer, on spending, doing various unnecessary things, unimportant things. So we must always remember, how can I spend my night and day? I must do something beneficial to spiritual life. I must do something to remove my defilements. I must do something to attain liberation. And day and night we have to find an opportunity, a moment to practice meditation, mindfulness. Number 9, do I take delight in solitude? Should be reflected upon always by one who has gone forth. That is, this entire Dhamma is for the one who delights in solitude. In Mahapurusha Vitakka Sutta discourse, we learn it Pavivittasayam Dhammo Nayam Dhammo Sanganikārāma. This Dhamma can be very clearly understood by who loves solitude, not one who loves society. When one likes or delights in social activities, with gossiping away with people, will not have time to reflect on Dhamma, to gain concentration, to remove one's own defilements. The last, number 10, is, have I gained superhuman knowledge which can be especially known to noble ones, so that later when I am questioned by fellow bhikkhus, I will not be embarrassed, should be reflected upon one who has gone forth. So this is one very special thing to remember. That means we must be very diligent, mindful, to be arouse our spiritual urgency, Dhamma Samvega. We must live, we must remember our life is very, very short, and part of it is already gone. Only very few part is left, a small part is left, few days are left, and therefore we must be very vigilant and arouse our spiritual urgency to attain some state of enlightenment, at least attaining jhanas, or if possible, at least attaining sotapanna state in this very life, so that when our fellow bhikkhu or bhikkhunis asked us, have you attained something very special? At that time, very honestly, sincerely, confidentially tell that person, yes, I have attained jhana, such and such a jhana. I have attained the stream entry and so forth. This doesn't mean that we go and make public announcement, announce it public mass media that we have attained such and such. Only when our fellow monk or nun very confidentially ask us, with that time, with sincere, friendly feeling, we should be able to tell what we have attained. These are the things we have to reflect upon always. And I wish all the bhikkhunis their effort bear fruit in this very life and have more and more bhikkhunis in this world.